Hello, this is Raziel Cohen with ndftraining.com, and today we're going to be looking at another affordable 1-10 LPVO from VectorOptics. Now, not too long ago, I actually made a video on this optic. This optic was from a company called VectorOptics, and they sent me this 1-6 option that has a very, very smooth, adjustable 1-6 magnification, and they kind of wanted to get my feedback on it and get my thoughts on this design. Now, this was pretty nice as an option for kind of recreational use, and then this other company sent me this optic, which is a 1-10, which kind of falls into the same category as that 1-6, as a very nice recreational use optic. So being able to have a nice recreational use optic on a rifle is pretty convenient in regards to if you have multiple AR-15 uppers, or if you just wanted to have a gun, again, just for fun, to be able to have a nice magnification on it. I know a lot of people, including myself, don't really want to spend $800,000, $900,000 on an optic for each individual platform. So being able to have an option that we know is for recreational use, but it gets the job done, might be something worth looking into. So we're going to go through some of the specs of this option and see maybe if it's something you'd want to look into when it comes to having a 1-10 variant for your AR-15 platform. So let's go through some of the specs of this optic and take a look at what you might be getting when you get this in the box. So starting off again, this is a 1-10 optic. It has an objective lens of 24 millimeters. The eye relief is around 3.5 inches. I think it says it could go up to like 3.7, but realistically, I think it was a little short for my preference. So you really have to get a proper alignment with your eye to really make sure that you're comfortable with the setup that it has. It works fine, obviously, but it's kind of more specific in regards to where your eye needs to be in order to be able to have it work efficiently for you. The weight of this is 8.6 ounces. It has a 30 millimeter main tube sizing. So in regards to having a lot of different options in regards to mounting, there's a huge variety because that's pretty much a standard, which is the 30 millimeter main tube. The adjustments for elevation and windage have a 120 MOA adjustment. So I'm going to hear the clicks, if you could hear that. Very tactile. It does go in half-inch increments. So depending on what you want to use, I know a lot of people might be more comfortable with quarter MOA, especially on something that might be a 1-10. But again, for me, I thought it was perfectly sufficient. And again, for me, it's also going to be a recreational use gun. So I'm not specifically worried about it being very, very precise. So half-inch MOA at 100 yards for this kind of build, for me, worked perfectly fine. It has a illuminated reticle, and it does have a very interesting reticle where it's kind of become very popular, where you have a kind of a larger center with a individual dot on the center of that circle, which really helps with close quarters as well as also being precise. And then going down the optic, you do have those hash marks in regards to adjusting for different distances, as well as off to the sides of that reticle, you also see adjustments for windage. So depending on if you want to adjust windage or not, they kind of have like immediate hold spots that you could use kind of as a reference point to see if that's going to be something you need. Besides for that, it does use a CR2032 battery, which is pretty standard, as well as also the illumination goes up to 11. Now, what's interesting about this previous optic that we looked at is that this optic had kind of two sets of magnification, and one set magnification was for the color green and the other was for the color red. For me, that's not really a preference because I would want just more not magnification, I apologize, more light. So the adjustments of the brightness of the optic. So for me, I'd prefer to have a large variety of brightness as opposed to half that variety and it just goes into different colors. So that's definitely going to be a pro for me. Generally speaking as well, this reticle is etched. So I generally prefer to use the etched reticle. The only time I'm going to be using the light or the brightness of the optic is going to be for starting to get pretty dark or dark, but at the point of it getting dark, you're probably also needing to use some form of lighting, other source, whether that be IR or using a flashlight. So it doesn't really matter at that point. But that is something to take into account. They also sent me this mount. Now this mount also is a pretty standard mount. The one thing I'm going to do a close-up on is that based on other mounts that I have, usually the front of the mount is going to be just above the rail. This looks like it's almost touching. It might actually be touching. I'm going to try to put like a dollar bill or something through it to see if that actually works. But I find it to be a little bit worrisome because I'm not sure how close that's going to be. But similar to the other optic, I also got that same mount for this one. If you might have seen last time, is that this mount was mounted on the front rail because I had to get it far enough where the eye relief would still work for me. So having this mount, which is a one-piece mount, it's able to get it far enough that it's not going onto the front rail, but also far enough that I'm able to get the proper eye relief on the optic, so it does end up working properly. So I got the same mount for this setup. Also, this optic did come with flip caps on both sides. It's just meant to protect your glass. Also, it did come with the integrated throw lever. You are able to unscrew it if you want to, but it actually works pretty well. My similar preference that I had with this optic as opposed to the other one is I liked being able to flip the magnification clockwise. This goes counterclockwise, so to go up in magnification, you go counterclockwise. I don't know why, but I feel like my preference would be to be able to throw it, because if you need to get there quickly, usually you're going to be on the lower magnification. So to go up to magnification, I feel like would be more important than to be going down, as well as also if you're going to be on higher magnification, a lot of people do prefer to have an offset red dot or something else along those lines. So it might be that still being on higher magnification, to get to higher magnification is more of a priority than to get to lower magnification, if that makes sense at all. So I think I prefer to go the opposite direction in regards to how to get to the higher magnification. But again, it works perfectly fine, and it is very, very smooth to be able to use. I really do like it. Especially also the 1:6 we looked previously. If I bring that up, you could tell that I did have the throw lever. That's really, like, I'm able to rack it back and forth really, really quickly, and it works very smoothly. This one is a little bit tighter, but still works, again, in comparison to other optics that I have, where I had to buy specifically a throw mount to be able to make it work at all, that I would actually like it. This is still perfectly sufficient, and I think it works great. So overall, the glass clarity is pretty good. There is a little bit of distortion around the edges, but from my understanding, I'll put up the price somewhere on the screen. This optic costs less than $300. So for that price and being able to get these features, along with being able to get scope caps and things that you need for this setup, I still think for a recreational use rifle is pretty good. So if you're looking for a 1:10, not a 1:6, not a 1:8, a 1:10, which is pretty great with that weight, by the way, the weight of this optic is pretty nice for a 1:10 specifically. This might be really interesting to be able to look into. So I'm gonna leave obviously more information in the description down below. If you have any questions on this optic, if you want me to try something out with this optic, test it in some form or fashion, please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below, and I'll try to get back to you on that. This is Raziel Cohen with ndftraining.com. Thank you for watching.